Hello and welcome to today's video. So some of you may know I am a huge fan of video games. I have loved video games as long as I can practically remember. To give you an idea, I remember when Pac-Man was new in the arcade, and that was kind of all the rage. I remember going to the Red Baron arcade in the Gateway Mall in Lincoln, Nebraska, and seeing what was the new latest game. And my favorite, or one of my favorite types of arcade games was the side-scrolling beat 'em up. You know, like Double Dragon, Golden Axe, the original like Turtles in Time. Another one of my favorites is the King of the Dragons game by Capcom, and then they followed up and did the two Advanced Dungeons and Dragons games. But in 2008, Behemoth released Castle Crashers on the Xbox 360. And I had seen pictures of it before, and I thought this game looks really cool. It's the hand-drawn artwork, but it was a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and it was in a fantasy setting, but it didn't take itself too seriously. And when that game came out, I was in love. I absolutely just think that is, it's one of my favorite games of all time. I still play it occasionally, and I've done a few Castle Crashers Sculptures in the past, but I've had some recent requests to do some more. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I thought, well, why don't I do a sculpted picture? Now, I did show a sculpted picture in the past of the Wookiee the Chew I did, that I had Peter Mayhew sign, but I've done a lot of other sculpted pictures in the past, and it's something where I was kind of in the groove to do for a while, and I did several, and then I just kind of stopped. You kind of go through phases in art, like I'll do a bunch of those, and then I'll do a bunch of shell monsters, and I'll just kind of do a group of things. And now with the YouTube channel, I seem to have more variety in what I do, because I want to keep it interesting for you guys, and it gives me a chance to try out new things. So I thought it would be fun to do a sculpted picture of one of the knights and one of the animal orbs. So in today's video, I'm going to make the Green Knight and the Ramy animal orb in a sculpted picture out of Primo Sculpey. Before I started filming, I went and got my supplies ready. So I have my clay, I have my reference picture of the Green Knight, and I have this little Castle Crasher action figure to use as a reference as well. So for the base of my sculpted picture, I want it to be kind of a light blue, kind of represent kind of a sky background. So I'm mixing ultramarine blue with some white to lighten it up. And then I'll mix in some more white to kind of just swirl it around in there, not fully mix it. So you'll kind of see that showing throughout the blue. Then I want to go ahead and roll it out into approximately a 4" by 4" square. It doesn't have to be exact. And then I'm going to use a ball tool to add this kind of a textured edge to it. Now, I did run into an issue where I had a lot of little flaws in it, some air pockets, some just little imperfections that I wasn't really happy with. So after I tried to kind of smooth it out, I decided, well, I'll just go ahead and flip it over and see how that looks. And since that side was pressed against the paper, it looked a lot smoother. And then I just went back with my ball tool again and kind of fixed that texture on the side since I had flipped it over. Now I'm going to go ahead and start on the Green Knight. So the first thing I'm going to do with the Green Knight is make his body. And now it's white in the game, but as most of you know, or some of you know, I don't like using white. If you've worked with Polymer Clay, the white picks up a lot. So I use pearl as kind of a substitute. It doesn't seem to pick up as much of the other colors. Plus I thought, being a knight, it looks shiny. I know this probably is supposed to be his tunic, but still thought it looked really good as a substitute for the white there. So with his body done, I'm going to go ahead and make his arms. Now, in the artwork, the action figure, and the game, the arms are gray, but I'm assuming that they're supposed to be like a metal, like that's supposed to be his plate armor. So I'm going to use silver instead, so it also has kind of a shine and obviously a metallic look to it. So I did the arms in two sections. I did the just the arm part, and then I did these shoulders to kind of bulk them up a little bit. Then I took a little bit of my leftover silver and mixed it with my green clay to give that kind of a metallic shimmery look as well. Now I decided to go ahead and use foil for the helmet like I did for the body to kind of bulk it up. So once I had the shape of the helmet of for the knight, I went ahead and covered that with the green clay, and then I just went ahead and smoothed it out. So it's hard to get things, perfect with clay, but with it being a knight helmet, you want it kind of nice and round and smooth. So once I was done with that, I decided to go ahead and cut out the little green cross that goes on his tunic. So I used the same green clay for that, used my X-Acto knife to cut it out, touched it up with a ball tool, and then used the blade of the X-Acto knife to pick it up off of the wax paper and put it onto the knight, and I just kind of press it in there. The last thing I needed to do on his helmet is he has these little circles that are on the side. So since I'm doing a sculpted picture, I'm only using like half circles. So I made one circle, cut it in half, put it on his left side, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on his right side. And I'm assuming these are kind of like what would be the hinge for the front of the helmet. So once those are done, I can go ahead and move on and start doing what would be the kind of like the white cross that goes on the front of his helmet. And again, I'm using the pearl clay as a substitute for the white. So I started off with the center so I can get that lined up, and then I cut another piece to use for the part that would go from side to side, and I just cut it in half, smooth that in place with the chisel tip tool. And then I noticed I had some specks of some stuff on the green, so I just used some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip to clean that up. Now, with that all done, I'm going to go ahead and do his eyes. So I've got my reference picture, and I'm using a ball tool to carve out his eyes. And then once those are pretty much the shape I want them to be, I'm going to go ahead and fill that with some black clay, use the ball tool to push that in, and then I'll go ahead and touch him up a little bit. Now, I know he's a knight, and normally knight's eyes would not, at least on the helmet, wouldn't move, but for him, since he's kind of a cartoon character, they're very expressive, so I wanted to kind of shape them to represent that. So the last thing I need to make is his little animal orb companion, Ramy the Ram. So I'm taking some foil to shape Ramy and covering that with some Primo Sculpey white. And then I'm going to just use my ball tool and to texture the fur and use my X-Acto knife to cut off the excess. And then I'll build up the area for his horns. You can see I do a bigger ball tool to do the indentions, and then I space off where I want his mouth to be. So I'll go ahead and finish up the texture here so he kind of has a nice furry look to him. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix up some beige, white, and brown, and that'll be for Ramy's horns. So I used the needle tool to do the indentions for that back horn, and now this front horn I'm going to shape it and go ahead and use the needle tool again to add the lines to it. Now that I'm happy with the shape and look of Ramy's horn, I went ahead and attached it, and then just used the ball tool to move that white clay up and get everything in place. The last thing I need to do is Ramy's mouth and eyes. So I'm just rolling out a snake and just putting it across there, and then I just do 2 little balls of black clay and do it for the eyes. Now looking at this, I kind of thought that mouth looked too thick compared to the artwork, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll pull that off of there and thin that out. I just wanted to thin it out a little bit, put it back on, and honestly, I was really happy with the difference between the two. So that's one of those things, if you see something minor that just bothers you about something, go ahead and fix it. You'll be surprised how much difference that can make.
Now it's time to bake our clay. Remember, always bake your clay according to package instructions.
And here we have the Castle Crashers Green Knight with Ramy the Animal Orb Sculpted Picture. So I'll just take this off this little stand I have and get you a better look at it. So I really am happy how this turned out. I like the way it really pops off the background there. This is much deeper, kind of a thicker sculpture than I normally do with my sculpted pictures. I haven't done one for a long time, so I think my style has changed some since I've, back when I made those. So this is kind of a result of that, and I think it has a much more three-dimensional look, which is what a picture should have. I was definitely happy with how those other ones turned out, but I do like this style better. So I'll do some more sculpted pictures. I'm also wanting to do more shadow boxes because I've only done one recently, which was the fairy door shadow box, and I've got a bunch more that I purchased at Hobby Lobby during my shopping video. So I do need to get some stuff made for those. So maybe I don't know if I'll do a Castle Crasher one, but maybe some other video game related one and do it out of a shadow box. I thought that would be kind of fun to try. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have other video game characters you'd like to see me sculpt, either as a sculpted picture, shadow box, or just as a figurine, please leave it in the comments down below. Alright, thanks for watching, and remember, never stop creating. Bye!